Everything in my life shattered long before I realized it. But the night I discovered the truth, behind my girlfriend's decision, the truth she hid even from herself, was the moment something inside me broke for good. I'm still not sure how. To explain it without feeling like I'm back in that room, staring at her, wondering where the girl I loved had gone. My name is Aaron Hayes, 21-year-old college junior at a university tucked along the California coast. My girlfriend, Lena Morgan, 19, soft-spoken, bright-eyed. The kind of girl who apologized even when you bumped into her, had been the center of my world for almost 2 years. We lived together in a tiny off-campus apartment that smelled like coffee grounds and the cinnamon candles she loved, until everything changed at a party she should have never gone to. A party I asked her not to go to, and then it happened. She was assaulted, and the world we built cracked open like thin glass. When she told me she was pregnant, she called it a strange blessing, as if the universe was trying to give her something. Amid the horror, I just stared at her, Lena, trembling, forcing a smile she didn't believe in, and I felt something heavy settle on my chest. Couldn't see the pregnancy as a blessing. I couldn't even look at her without seeing him. Whoever he was a faceless monster that stole pieces of her I couldn't put back. And that's where the guilt began. Guilt for not being enough to help her. Guilt for wondering if I should leave. Guilt for not wanting a child that wasn't mine. Loved Lena so much that sometimes it suffocated me, but raising that baby felt like drowning. That same evening, overwhelmed by thoughts spiraling through my head, I drove to my friend Ryan Brooks's apartment. Ryan and I had known each other since high school. He was the kind of guy who joked at funerals and laughed when he was nervous. I should have predicted what his reaction would be. What would you do in my situation? I asked him when we finally sat down in the cluttered living room of his apartment. Ryan raised an eyebrow. Do you mean if I were pregnant, or if I were you? 'Cause if I were pregnant, I'd sell the story to Netflix. I glared at him, and his grin faded. He sighed, then leaned back on his couch. Look, man, it's tough, but if it were me, I wouldn't stay. That's too much for anyone. But you care about her, so you gotta choose what you want your life to look like. Nobody can decide this for you. I left more conflicted than before, driving home through the quiet streets, its headlights smearing across the pavement like white scratches in the night. I called Jason, another friend from my fraternity back in freshman year. We weren't close anymore, which made it easier to pretend the situation was hypothetical. But Jason wasn't an idiot, dude. He said after I finished talking, if you love her, you stay. She didn't choose what happened to her. And that kid, he didn't choose how he got here either. Jason was always more moral than the rest of us. He was openly pro-life and proud of it. Normally his lectures annoyed me, but tonight I clung to every piece of validation I could get, no matter where it came from. By the time I pulled into my driveway, I realized something terrifying. Everyone had advice, but no one had answers. If I wanted clarity, I'd have to face Lena. Inside, the apartment felt too quiet. She sat at the kitchen table, fingers wrapped around a mug of untouched tea. When she looked up at me, her eyes were rimmed red, like she'd been crying for hours. Can we talk? I asked. She nodded slowly. I told her everything, my confusion, my fear, my concern for our future, how sorry I was that she had to endure what happened. But when I gently suggested maybe we should consider termination, Lena stared at me as if I'd asked her to throw her soul into the fire. I can't, she whispered. You know I can't. She came from a deeply religious Catholic family. Sunday Mass, Wednesday Mass, Friday volunteering faith was stitched into her bones. Even before all this, I knew abortion was a word she avoided like it was cursed. But I had to be honest. I told her I didn't think I could raise a child that wasn't mine. Her lips tightened. Then you're not the man I thought you were. That hit harder than I expected. You're being selfish, she added. For what I've been through, you want to walk away because it's inconvenient. No, I whispered. It's not like that. I'll help you heal. It's therapy, support, whatever you need. But raising a kid changes everything. Then we're done talking, she said, and stormed into the bedroom. I sat alone in the living room for a long time, and for the first time in years, I didn't know where we were going. The weeks that followed were a carousel of emotional extremes. One day we'd go to our favorite diner, eat pancakes topped with strawberries, laugh about nothing, and then she'd suddenly mention the baby. I'll miss days like this after it's born, she'd say, and I'd feel that familiar panic clawing at my throat. You don't have to miss anything, I'd tell her. We could still end this. You don't have to do this. Then she'd accuse me of being selfish, again, and I'd tell her she didn't understand what this would do to us, and we'd spiral into the same exhausting argument every single time. But something else began to eat at me, something that didn't. Lena had never wanted kids, not when we met. Not last year, not ever. She used to say she wanted to finish school, maybe travel the world first. She said baby scared her, so why now? Why cling so desperately to something tied to trauma? The question gnawed at me, keeping me awake at night. Eventually, one night after she fell asleep, I broke. I waited until her breathing softened, then grabbed her phone and went to the kitchen. I hated myself for doing it, but talking to her only created more walls, not answers. I searched through her messages with her best friend, Bridget, nothing meaningful. It's memes, gossip, and fragments of normal life. It felt almost surreal reading those, knowing what she was carrying inside her. Then I opened her family group chat, and my blood went cold. Her mother's text, set the morning after the assault, was a wall of cruelty. A full paragraph of venom blaming Lena for everything. If you didn't dress the way you do, you always wanted attention from men. Look at what your choices brought upon you. Better keep that baby if you want to make it to heaven. And the worst one, you deserved what happened. Felt something inside me twist sharply, rage, grief, disbelief, all tangled together. I couldn't breathe for a moment. Her father hadn't even defended her. I checked the call log. Lena called her mother 8 minutes after the message. My heart sank. Just then, footsteps entered the kitchen. Lena, I shut the phone so fast I nearly dropped it. Pretended I was just grabbing water. Smiled, hugged her, kissed her forehead. Well, my mind spun with horror. She had endured trauma from strangers. And trauma from her own parents. And she still thought she had to please them. Still thought she had to keep the baby to earn their forgiveness, or God's approval. The next 2 weeks, I treated her with more care than ever before, running baths, cooking dinner, gently asking how she felt. But inside, I was screaming. I wanted to tell her I knew. I wanted to tell her she didn't have to suffer for her parents' cruel expectations. Finally, one night after dinner, I couldn't hold it anymore. Lena, I said softly, we need to talk. She froze, suspicious. About what? Everything. I told her I had gone through her phone. Told her I saw the messages. I told her I knew she didn't actually want the baby, that she was terrified of disappointing her family. That I understood now why she clung to the pregnancy, even though it was killing her inside. As I spoke, her face crumpled, then she broke. She sobbed so hard, her body shook. I rushed to her, holding her as she buried her face into my chest. The tension of months finally splitting open. She wasn't angry at me. She was exhausted, destroyed, scared, alone between cries. She whispered, I don't want this baby. It's just a reminder, every day. I hate myself for feeling that way. You don't have to hate yourself, I whispered back. You don't owe your parents your body or your future. She nodded weakly, clinging to me. That night, for the first time, she chose herself. We agreed to seek termination, and for the first time in months, Lena slept peacefully. The next morning, I made her breakfast in bed Gag's toast. And strawberries because she loved them and asked quietly, What? You said last night. Did you mean it? She hesitated. I felt her fear rise again. Fear of her parents, fear of judgment, fear of losing everything she'd been taught was right. But finally, she whispered, Yes. She grabbed her laptop and began searching for clinics nearby. We spent the whole morning researching options, and we found one with compassionate reviews. We booked an appointment. Later that day, I asked gently, Do you feel attached to the baby at all? Okay. She looked up at me, eyes trembling. I'll be honest, always. Feels like a parasite, she whispered. I feel dirty. Not because of it, but because of what it represents. I could never love it the way a mother should. Not after what happened. Her voice broke. I held her, telling her she didn't have to carry that burden anymore. And somewhere, inside me, a resolve formed. If her parents ever tried to hurt her again emotionally or physically, would stand between them and her, no matter what it cost. We didn't know it yet, but soon, that promise would be tested. The morning of the appointment arrived quietly, almost too quietly, like the world was holding its breath for us. Lena barely spoke while I drove. Her fingers stayed laced together in her lap, knuckles white, shoulders tense. Every red light made her shift slightly, as if still unsure we were doing the right thing, as if the guilt her parents had carved into her bones kept whispering in her ear. The clinic was warm, softly lit, and filled with posters of smiling women and motivational quotes that felt almost surreal considering what we were here for. I filled out the paperwork for her because her hands were trembling too badly when they finally called her name. She looked at me with a flicker of fear so raw that I stood up and kissed her forehead. I'll be right here, I whispered. She nodded, took a breath, and followed the nurse down the hallway. The waiting room felt suffocating after she left. A muted TV played some cooking show, but the sizzling pans and cheerful chatter only made me more anxious. I sat there, elbows on my knees, staring at the door she'd gone through, willing time to move faster when Lena finally came out. She looked pale and fragile, but lighter in a way I couldn't describe. She leaned into me, her body softening with relief. It's done, she whispered. I walked her out to the car carefully, letting her lean on me. At home, I carried her bag, helped her settle onto the couch, brought blankets, water, painkillers. She curled up while I put on her favorite cooking show, the one where the host always yelled at everyone, but she somehow found it comforting. For a moment, I thought peace might finally be within reach. But then her phone rang. It buzzed loudly. On the coffee table. Mom calling? Our eyes met. Lena's face drained of color. She'll keep calling if I don't pick up, she whispered. Do you want me to talk to her? I asked gently. She shook her head. No. No. So she answered. Her mother's voice burst through. The phone loud enough that I could hear every word. How are you feeling? Why are you lightheaded? Is the baby okay? It's happening? Lena's throat tightened. Her eyes glossed over with panic. I just need rest, Mom. What do you mean you need rest, Lena? Are you listening to me? To your boyfriend on the phone. I want to talk to him. She couldn't speak. She stared at me helplessly. Then her mother said the words, we feared, were coming over. Line went dead before Lena could protest. She looked like a trapped animal. Her breathing became shallow. I can't tell them, she whispered. I can't. They'll hate me. They'll say I'm damned. They'll, Lena, I said firmly. Taking her hands, go to the bedroom, let me handle them. Trust me. She hesitated, then obeyed, retreating down the hallway. Minutes later, the doorbell rang so violently, it felt like the whole apartment shook. When I opened the door, her parents pushed past me without waiting for permission. "Where is Lena?" her mother snapped. "What's going on with the baby?" I stepped in front of them, blocking their path. "She's resting," I said. "Sit down. We need to talk." Her mother's eyes blazed with suspicion. Her father glared at me like I was something he scraped off a shoe. "Talk about what?" demanded. And then her mother saw the painkillers on the counter prescription bottles from the clinic. Her face twisted. "What is this?" I didn't move. "Sit down. How dare you speak to us like it's done?" I said, my voice low and steady. "The pregnancy has been terminated." Her mother's scream pierced the apartment. "You murdered our grandchild. You led her into sin. You corrupted her? Stop," I snapped. Her father stepped forward, face red with rage. "You had no right. You have no right," I shot back. "Your daughter was drowning. You pushed her further under. Her..." Mother jabbed a finger at me. "You brainwashed her. You made her kill her own baby. She didn't want that baby," I yelled, louder than I meant to. "She told me. She tried to tell you for weeks, but you shamed her, guilted her, punished her for something she didn't choose." Her mother scoffed. "She deserved it." Dressing like a, "If you say one more hateful thing," I said through clenched teeth. "I swear to God, I'll call the police and file for a restraining order today." Her father grabbed his wife's arm. "We're leaving," he hissed at her, but not before glaring at me. "You will rot for what you've done. We want nothing to do with sinners like you." "Good," I said. "Stay out of her life unless you're ready to crawl back and beg for forgiveness." They stormed out, slamming the door behind them. The apartment fell silent. Lena stepped out from the hallway, tears streaming down her cheeks, trembling from head to toe. I rushed to her, pulling her into my arms. She buried her face in my shoulder and sobbed in a way I'd never heard before. "It's over," I whispered. "We're safe. They can't hurt you anymore, but trauma doesn't vanish with words. It lingers, echoes, reshapes everything." The days after the procedure were slow, quiet, fragile. Lena slept a lot. Sometimes she'd cry without warning. Sometimes she'd stare at the wall like she was still replaying the argument with her parents. I held her every night, hoping it was enough. In the following weeks, something changed in her. She began therapy. She started journaling. She took long walks alone to clear her mind. We rebuilt ourselves gently, like stitching together fabric that's been violently torn. Months passed, and then, almost a year later, our doorbell rang again on a calm Saturday morning while we were drinking coffee on our apartment balcony. Lena frowned. "We're not expecting anyone. Stay here," I said. When I opened the door, my heart nearly stopped. Her parents stood there, but they looked smaller. Her mother's eyes were swollen. Her father's shoulders hunched, as if the weight of their own bitterness had finally crushed them. "Is Lena home?" her father asked quietly. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice colder than I intended. "We want to make things right," her mother said, voice trembling. "We miss our daughter." Lena appeared behind me, her hand lightly touching my back. She listened as her mother cried. Her father apologized, not gracefully, but sincerely enough. That her walls softened just a little. But forgiveness isn't a door that swings open instantly. "It's going to take time," Lena said softly. "A lot of time?" "So they tried. They came over for dinner, invited us to theirs. We played board games, chatted, cooked together. So for a while, it felt like healing might be possible. But trauma is tricky. It hides in shadows until the light shifts. Every time things seemed to be improving, her parents would say something, anything that triggered the past. A comment about modesty, a passive-aggressive remark about sin. A subtle jab that reopened wounds, still healing. Lena would jot down. Sometimes she'd cry. Sometimes she'd get angry in ways I rarely saw. Therapy helped her, but not enough to erase years of manipulation. Eventually, after countless failed attempts, Lena realized the truth. Some relationships are too damaged to be repaired. The calls became less frequent. The visits stopped. The silence grew. And strangely, beautifully, it didn't break her. It freed her, with them gone. Our world became small but peaceful, healing, full of gentle mornings and late nights. Laughter and the quiet certainty that we only needed each other. We weren't perfect, and we had scars, both of us, but we walked through the fire together, and for the first time in a long time. Life felt ours again. In the months that followed our final break with Lena's parents, life settled into something that almost felt like normalcy, fragile. Yes, but real. The apartment felt lighter, without conflict drifting in through phone calls or unexpected visits. There were days when we forgot the past entirely, losing ourselves in school, work, and ordinary routines like grocery shopping or deciding what movie to watch. But healing, I learned, is not linear. Some nights, Lena would wake up gasping, eyes wide, her skin cold. Sometimes she'd stand in the shower for nearly an hour, water running down her back like she was trying to wash away something invisible. And sometimes, when I held her, she would stiffen, not because she feared me, but because memories came back in flashes that neither of us could control. I never asked what the nightmare showed her. She never volunteered the details. Some things are private wounds the soul refuses to speak aloud, but she always let me hold her afterward, and that was enough. She began seeing her therapist twice a week. Slowly, she started speaking up more. In class, laughing more at my dumb jokes, cooking her favorite foods again. Little signs of reconstruction, if I'm honest. I was healing too. I just didn't realize it then. One night, several months after the procedure, Lena was sitting at our small dining table, working on an essay. Her hair was in a messy bun, glasses sliding down her nose, a blanket wrapped around her shoulders. She looked peaceful. "Hey," I said softly, as I sat across from her. Random question. She peered up at me. I've been thinking," I began, choosing my words carefully, "about everything we went through. I just want to make sure I did right by you." Her expression softened. "You did. But I pushed you to be honest when you weren't ready. I confronted your parents. I made choices for us sometimes without knowing if." She reached across the table and took my hand. "Aaron, you saved me." Her voice cracked a little, but she continued. "When I think about where I would have been if I had done everything alone, I don't know if I'd still be here. Not mentally. Maybe not even physically." She inhaled deeply. "You gave me space to choose myself. That's something no one else ever did." I wanted to tell her she didn't have to give me that much credit, but the truth lodged in my throat. Because deep down, I knew something she didn't. There had been moments when I nearly walked away. Moments when the weight felt too heavy. Moments when the guilt consumed me. Moments when I wondered if I'd fail her again the way I failed to protect her that night. But I stayed, and I would stay again. After that conversation, something shifted between us. It wasn't dramatic, a gentle deepening, like roots quietly spreading under the soil. We trusted each other more, spoke more openly about our internal fears. Not all at once, but piece by piece. A few weeks later, Lena surprised me. It was a chilly Sunday morning. The city was blanketed in fog, the kind that muffled sounds and made everything look softer. I was in the kitchen making coffee when she stepped in, wearing my oversized sweatshirt, her hair still messy from sleep. "Aaron," she said quietly. "Yeah." She hesitated for a long moment. "Do you ever think about the future?" I nearly dropped the coffee mug. I cleared my throat. "Yeah, sometimes, do you?" She bit her lip. "I didn't think I'd want to, not after everything. But now, I can imagine a life that isn't defined by trauma." She brushed a strand of hair behind her ear, "and you're in it." My chest tightened, not with panic, but with something warm and overwhelming. I placed the mug down and crossed the room to her. "Well," I murmured, brushing her cheek with my thumb. "I'm not going anywhere." She leaned into my hand, eyes soft. We stood there for a while, foreheads touching, breathing the same air. There was no rush, no fear, just an unspoken promise. The world outside remained foggy, but inside our little apartment, things felt clearer. A semester passed. Lena excelled in her classes, something her therapist said was a sign of reclaiming control. Got a part-time job at a tech company downtown. And for the first time since the assault, we started planning things beyond tomorrow. A summer road trip, a new couch, maybe even a pet. But life has a way of reminding you that healing never fully erases scars. One evening, after a long day, Lena received an email from her mother. Not a call, not a text, an email. That alone was strange enough. She stared at her phone as if it were a grenade. "What is it?" I asked gently. She handed me the phone. Her mother's message was short. "Lena, I've been thinking. Your father too. We want to apologize properly. Could we meet somewhere neutral? Not for us, then for closure." Mom. I stared at the words, unsure how to interpret them. Repentance, manipulation, a final attempt to tug her back into their orbit. "Oh, you want to go?" I asked. She didn't answer immediately. Her brows furrowed, her breathing uneven. "I don't know," she whispered. "Part of me wants closure, but another part is terrified." I nodded. "You don't have to decide tonight. You don't have to go alone." She squeezed my hand, grateful but conflicted. Over the next week, Lena brought it up repeatedly. Therapy? Her therapist didn't push her either. Watt just reminded her to prioritize her emotional safety above everything else. Finally, Lena made her choice. "I want to see them," she said one night. "Not because they deserve forgiveness, but because I deserve peace." So we arranged to meet her parents at a quiet cafe on the east side of town. It's neutral ground, as requested. The day of the meeting, Lena was a bundle of nerves. She kept tapping her foot, twisting her necklace, chewing the inside of her cheek. I held her hand the entire drive. When we walked into the cafe, her parents were already seated. Her father looked older, smaller. Her mother's eyes were red-rimmed, her fingers fidgeting with a napkin. Lena froze for a moment. I gently placed my hand on her back, guiding her forward. She sat. I sat beside her. Her parents stared at her as if seeing her for the first time. "Lena," her mother whispered, voice shaking. "We're sorry." The silence that followed was heavy. To heavy, her mother continued, tears gathering. "I was cruel. I was blinded by fear and religion and everything. I punished you for things that weren't your fault." Her father cleared his throat. "We failed you." Lena's lips trembled, but she stayed silent. Her mother reached across the table, stopping halfway when Lena flinched. "We want a chance to be in your life again, to do better, to start over." It was a tidy apology. It's almost too tidy an apology. Polished with the expectation of grace. I felt Lena stiffen next to me. Her voice, when it came, was small but steady. "I appreciate you saying that, but I'm not ready. Maybe someday. Maybe not. But right now, I need space." Her mother's face fell. Her father looked away, jaw tight. "Lena," her mother said softly, "we lost our grandchild, and we lost you." Lena froze. I felt something dark ignite in my chest. "That's enough," I said sharply. "You don't get to use that against?" Her mother looked startled. "Didn't mean yes, you did," Lena whispered. Her voice cracked not with weakness, but with clarity. And that's why I'm not ready. She stood up. I followed. Her father looked like he wanted to protest, but Lena shook her head. Goodbye, she said quietly. We left the cafe without looking back. Outside, the air was cool, crisp, almost too clean. Lena's breath trembled as she exhaled. Are you okay? I asked. She nodded, tears sliding down her cheeks. Oh, for the first time, yes. I wrapped my arms around her, pulling her close as cars passed and people walked by, unaware of the quiet revolution happening in her heart. Closure. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was simply choosing herself again, and I couldn't have been prouder. Life resumed. Classes, work, therapy, dinners. The gentle rhythm of healing. But something about that cafe meeting lingered in the air between us. Not harmful, but significant. It was the moment Lena stopped defining herself by her parents' expectations. And the moment I realized she wasn't just surviving anymore, she was growing. One night, while we were making pasta together, she turned to me suddenly. Aaron, yeah. She bit her lip in that nervous but determined way she did when something big was on her mind. I've been thinking a lot about the future again. I paused, spoon halfway to the pot. Okay, good thoughts or scary thoughts? Ulf, she admitted. But mostly good. She took a breath. Would you ever want to move in together properly? Not just the college roommates turned partners version. I mean, create a home? Spread through my chest. We already are, I said softly. But yes, absolutely yes. She smiled, a real, full smile that reached her eyes. And for the first time, the future felt less like a threat and more like a place we could build together. The semester drifted into summer with a lazy slowness that neither of us minded. For the first time in what felt like forever, the world wasn't burning beneath our feet. Lena and I moved through life in small, meaningful steps, cooking dinner together, studying at the same cafe, taking long drives along the coast with the windows down and the music up. Pieces of us that trauma had shattered began fitting themselves back together in quiet ways. One warm evening in June, I lay on our living room rug, pretending to fix a wobbly table leg, and Lena sat cross-legged. On the couch, scrolling through apartment listings, she suddenly said, Aaron, come here. Her tone was thoughtful, not urgent, not anxious. Something in the middle. I rolled over onto my elbows and looked up at her. What's up? She tilted her phone so I could see the screen. I found a place. The listing showed a bright, airy 2-bedroom apartment near the beach. Wooden floors, big windows, sunlight everywhere. It feels like somewhere a new life starts. She whispered. My heart tugged at those soft words spoken from a girl who once believed she had no future at all. You want to check it out? I asked. She nodded. I think I'm ready for a real home. We moved 2 months later. The new apartment sat on a small hill, overlooking the glittering line where the ocean met the sky. It was nothing fancy: white walls, creaky cabinets, a bathroom sink with a stubborn drip, but it was ours. The first night we slept there, we lay on a mattress on the floor, wrapped in a single blanket. The room empty, except for our laughter echoing off bare walls. Lena rested her head on my chest. You ever think about how far we've come? Every day, I said truthfully. She was quiet for a long moment. I didn't think I'd get here, she whispered. A place that feels safe. Life that feels. It's mine. You built. I said. I just got to walk beside you. She didn't answer, but her fingers intertwined with mine. And that was enough. Despite the joy of our new space, healing was still a work in progress. Lena, sometimes startled at loud voices. Certain smells, cheap cologne, disinfectant, stale beer could send her spiraling. We learned to navigate those triggers with gentleness and patience. But even as the dark moments came and went, the good moments grew more frequent. She started volunteering at a local community center, helping kids with their reading. They adored her. I loved watching her glow after each session, as if the children somehow restored pieces of her innocence she thought had been lost. One evening, after she returned from volunteering, she placed a drawing on the kitchen counter crayon. Scribbles from a little girl who'd hugged her tightly before leaving. She said, I remind her of what love looks like, Lena said softly. Kid's a genius, I replied. She laughed, light, genuine, warm. The sound filled the room like sunlight. It was moments like that when I realized she was no longer living in survival mode. She was living, and so was I. But life always finds its way of testing us. It started with a phone call we weren't expecting. We were making dinner, Lena chopping tomatoes while I stirred pasta, when her phone buzzed on the counter. She glanced at it, froze, and slowly set the knife down. Who is it? Asked, though I already suspected. My mother. A year had passed since their last real contact. Since the cafe conversation that severed the last rope binding her to their expectations. You don't have to answer, I reminded her. She hesitated, breathing unsteady. I know, but maybe. Her voice faltered. Maybe there's something I need to hear. She swiped to accept the call. Hello? Her mother's voice was small, uncertain. Nothing like the thunderous, condemning tone we remembered, Lena. I don't know if you'll let me say this, but I need to try. Lena glanced at me, stayed close, but quiet. Her mother inhaled, shakily. We were wrong. Your father and I, we let our faith become cruelty. We let fear turn into control. We hurt you more deeply than we ever understood. There isn't a day we haven't regretted it. Lena's eyes filled with tears, not from pain, but something complicated and layered. a tangled knot of history and grief and longing. Her mother continued, voice breaking, "We're in counseling, just trying to change. We won't ask you to forgive us, but we hope someday you might let us try again." Silence, long, heavy, trembling. Finally, Lena spoke. "I don't hate you," she whispered, "but I can't go back to how things were. I won't lose myself again. We understand," her mother said. "Just know we love you, even if we're clumsy at it, even if we failed you." When the call ended, Lena stood still for a long moment. Phone pressed to her chest, tears slipped down her cheeks. I wrapped my arms around her. "How do you feel?" I murmured. She shook her head slowly, strangely. Free? This wasn't reconciliation. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But it was closure deeper than the cafe meeting, a release of the last invisible chain tying her to their shame. Life continued in gentle, steady waves. We built routines, habits, weekend rituals, quiet joys. On Saturdays, we visited the farmer's market, where Lena always chose flowers that matched her mood: sunflowers when she felt brave, lavender when she needed rest, white daisies when she felt hopeful. On Sundays, we cooked big breakfasts and danced barefoot in the kitchen to old rock songs. Sometimes we spoke about the past. Sometimes we didn't, but neither of us hid anymore. And as seasons changed, so did we. One autumn afternoon, while walking along the beach, Lena slipped her hand into mine. "Aaron, can I tell you something? Anything?" Oh my God. She stopped, turning toward the ocean. The wind tugged at her hair, the waves whispering along the shore. "I used to think the worst thing that ever happened to me would define me forever." "Oh," she said quietly. "But now, I think the person I'm becoming will define me more." She squeezed my fingers, and that person is happier than I thought she'd ever be. Motion tightened in my throat. "You earned that happiness," I said. "Every bit of it." She smiled at me, soft, warm, and sure. "And you," she added gently, "are the safest place I've ever known." We kissed while the sun dipped behind the horizon, casting gold along the water. That moment wasn't a climax. It wasn't some dramatic turning point. It was something better. It was peace. Years later. Yes, years our life would continue unfolding in ways we once thought impossible. New jobs, a bigger apartment, maybe a pet or two, maybe more. But the truth is simple. We didn't need perfection. We didn't need a flawless past. We didn't need anyone else's approval. We needed each other and the courage to choose ourselves every day, every moment. The trauma didn't vanish. The scars didn't disappear. They simply became part of our story, part of the map that led us to who we were destined to become. And even now, when I look at Lena across the kitchen table, or curled beside me on the couch, or laughing at some silly comment I make, still feel that same quiet conviction. We survived, we healed, we grew. Not because life was kind, but because we were strong. Enough to face it, dash together, and that, more than anything else, is what saved us.